On August 10th, 2013, almost exactly 10 years ago to the day, Luton Town travelled to this stadium, Hague Avenue in Southport, Merseyside, for the opening game of the 2013-14 season. Among a crowd of 2,210, at a ground which only has 1,660 seats, the 839 Luton Town fans, who made the 3.5-hour journey up north from Bedfordshire, would be heading home disappointed. Southport took the lead via a deflected free kick from veteran non-league midfielder Jamie Milligan, and in the 58th minute, Luton centre-back Steve McNulty was sent off. The red card, brandished by the referee for an incident which no one had seen, was later rescinded. Into the final 15 minutes of the game, though, Luton were handed a lifeline. After top scorer Andre Gray was brought down inside the penalty area, the referee pointed to the spot. Sean Worley, on his debut, having been signed that summer by Luton from Southport, stepped up but saw his efforts saved by his former teammate in the Southport goal. It was a comically dreadful opening day of the season for Luton Town, though their supporters could be forgiven for not having seen the funny side of things at the time. Having been relegated from the First Division months before the birth of the Premier League in 1992, this was Luton's 5th successive season of non-league football, and defeat to relegation candidate Southport didn't exactly inspire confidence. Luton went on to lose just 4 more games all season though, going on to lift the Conference Premier title and begin one of the most rapid and remarkable rises in the history of English football. It was another penalty, 11 weeks ago, which sealed Luton Town's improbable promotion to the Premier League. This time around, it was Dan Potts, a cancer survivor signed on a free transfer 8 years ago when Luton Town were still in League 2, who stepped up in front of over 85,000 fans at Wembley Stadium, slightly different surroundings to Hague Avenue, and he made no mistake from 12 yards out. Promotion makes Luton Town the Premier League's ultimate underdogs. Their stadium, Kenilworth Road, which requires £10 million of renovation which still haven't been completed just to meet Premier League requirements, is the smallest in the history of the Premier League, with a capacity of just over 10,000. Luton's revenue last season was less than 3% of Manchester City's, and their wage bill was just a quarter of the size of the league's lowest spenders Brentford. The squad that won Luton Town promotion to the Premier League cost the club a grand total of £5.5 million, or about enough to buy you 1/20th of Declan Rice. I'm not sure what you do with that. So in today's video, on the eve of Luton Town's Premier League debut, I wanted to take a closer look at the league's ultimate underdogs, how they have prepared for life in the big time, and whether, despite having been written off by almost everyone before a ball has been kicked, the little guys might actually surprise a few teams this season. To describe Luton Town's ascent to the Premier League as overachieving would be a gross understatement. The Hatters were effectively banished from the Football League in the 2008-09 season when they were deducted 30 points before the campaign had even begun. It was, and still remains, the harshest points deduction ever inflicted on a club in the 135-year history of the Football League. It bred a sense of resentment and anger at Luton, and a banner which reads, "Luton Town, established 1885, betrayed by the FA 2008, has been displayed at Kenilworth Road throughout the 15 years since that judgment was made. It took Luton 5 years to return to the Football League, a further 5 to return to the Championship, and just 4 to reach the Premier League from there. They have done it all while retaining the same supporter-backed consortium ownership which rescued the club from extinction in 2008. Throughout their rise, from non-league to the Premier League, over a period of just 10 years, Luton only signed 5 players for more than £100,000. Of the total £5.5 million cost of Luton's promotion-winning squad, as per the club's own accounts, forward Carlton Morris, signed from Barnsley last summer, reportedly accounted for £2 million of that all on his own. That's one signing, and not even a particularly expensive one by Championship standards, accounting for over a third of the value of Luton's entire squad. Luton's revenue in their most recent set of accounts for the 2021-22 season was just £17.7 million, compared with the Championship average of £27.1 million and almost £72 million at the league's highest earning club, who were, unsurprisingly, in receipt of £44 million of parachute payments alone. That's before we compare it with the Premier League teams that Luton are now competing against. Manchester City's revenue in their last set of accounts was a mammoth £613 million, the highest figure in all of world football, and a cool 35 times the amount that Luton raked in over the same period. This season, the two teams will meet as equals, officially at least. Even the team with the lowest revenue in the Premier League in the 2021-22 season still recorded a turnover of £123 million, close to 7 times as much as Luton. In terms of commercial revenue, the gulf is even more stark. Commercial revenue was worth just £2.3 million to Luton last season, the second lowest figure in the Championship, compared with £373 million at Manchester City, £309 million at Manchester United, and £275 million at Liverpool. As with almost all clubs in the Championship, Luton still spent in excess of 100% of their revenue on wages, though only just in their case, literally 100.5%, and their wage bill was almost half the Championship's average, despite the Hatters finishing third, qualifying for the playoffs for a second successive season, and ultimately winning promotion. The lowest wage bill in the Premier League, by comparison, comes in at £68 million at Brentford, and the Bees are outliers in of themselves in English football's top flight. Next up is Brighton at £115 million, more than 6 times Luton's budget. At the top end of the league, the numbers become even more comical. Manchester United paid Jadon Sancho alone, who played 26 games, scored 6 goals and made 3 assists in the Premier League last season, more than Luton Town paid their entire squad at just over £18 million. Erling Haaland, after all of his bonuses and contract clauses are taken into account, if reports are to be believed, likely cost twice that amount. The renovation work that is required to bring Kenilworth Road just up to meet the Premier League's most basic standards, specifically in regard to press boxes, facilities, and camera and commentary points, will cost roughly twice as much as the squad of players that got the club into the Premier League in the first place. Kenilworth Road is not just the smallest stadium in the 2023-24 Premier League season, but the smallest that the league has ever seen, taking that crown away from Bournemouth's Dean Court, whilst making Craven Cottage look like something akin to the Santiago Bernabeu. First opened in 1905, there have been talks of Luton leaving Kenilworth Road for at least the last 50 years. When John Gurney bought Luton in 2003, he famously proposed building a 70,000-seater stadium with a removable pitch on stilts next to the M1 with a Formula 1 track built around the ground. Surprisingly, that project never came to fruition. At long last, it does appear as though Luton will soon have a new home though. Luton received permission to build a stadium with an initial capacity of 19,500 on a 20-acre site at Power Court in the heart of Luton city centre, or town centre I should say, back in 2019. Promotion to the Premier League should accelerate those plans, with the club hoping to move into the new stadium in time for the start of the 2026-27 campaign. But for the time being, Kenilworth Road is looking to go out with a bang. Unlike any other stadium in the Premier League, Kenilworth Road is almost hidden at street level, but has an unmistakable feel inside. The famous Oak Road stand entrance has its turnstiles built into a row of terraced houses, followed by a walkway which takes supporters up a set of steps which look into local residents' back gardens. It is a far cry from the £1.2 billion Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Luton's distinctive and soon-to-be-left-behind home ground could be one of their key advantages this season. For a lot of Premier League players, it will be unlike anything that they have seen before. Whatever the renovation work that has been carried out this summer, the changing rooms will be more cramped and less luxurious than anything else in the division. The pitch itself at Kenilworth Road feels tight and congested, with the fans, quite literally, as we saw in last season's playoff semi-final, when one supporter pushed or punched Sunderland's Amad Diallo right on top of the players. With everything else stacked against them, Luton will have to use that to their advantage. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that they assault opposing players. Personally, I think that is taking things too far. That is your hot take from me in this video, if you were after one. But merely that they make best use of the unusual surroundings for opposing players that is Kenilworth Road. From a £5.5 million squad that took them up, Luton have spent over 3 times that amount this summer alone. When you put it like that, it sounds like a lot, but in a Premier League context, £17 million is barely a drop in the ocean. Arsenal just spent around twice that amount on a second-choice goalkeeper, and even if he becomes their number 1, they will still have spent about twice as much on their number 2, since both Raya and Ramsdale set them back around £30 million. Newcastle United have spent well over twice as much, subject to add-ons, on a 20-year-old right-back recovering from an ACL injury who has played a grand total of 26 minutes of first-team football in the last 12 months. He was brilliant before he got injured, but, still. Even Brentford, the lowest spenders in the Premier League prior to Luton's promotion, spent more this summer on a defender who ended last season as Wolves' 4th-choice centre-back than Luton have on all of their arrivals combined. I actually think that Raya, Livramento, and Nathan Collins, the 3 players that I was referring to there, are all really good players, but, you get the idea. However modest it may have been though, Luton's summer business has thus far been sensational. In Ryan Giles, Tahit Chong, Mads Anderson, Marvelous Nakamba and Thomas Kaminski, all 5 of their permanent additions signed for transfer fees are relatively young, hungry and, crucially, proven top-class championship players with a point to prove. Best case scenario, they flourish in the Premier League and either keep Luton up or are sold for significant profit. Worst case scenario, the Premier League proves to be too steep of a step up in class for them at this stage of their careers. They go back down as better and more experienced professionals, primed to bring Luton back up again in the 2024-25 season. For Luton, this season is like a free hit. That's not to say that their aim won't be survival, or that they haven't signed players who they think are capable of competing in the Premier League. It is just a realistic acknowledgement of the club's budget and prospects, and personally, I think that it is extremely shrewd. Luton's most expensive summer arrival, Ryan Giles, signed for a club record £5 million from Wolves, where he never made a single league appearance, was outstanding last season on loan at Middlesbrough. A left winger by trade, Giles spent most of last season at left-back for Borough, and he is perfectly suited to playing as an attack-minded wing-back, which is exactly where Rob Edwards will play him this season. An absolute assist machine down the left flank, Giles made 12 assists from left-back for Middlesbrough last season, and even had a sharp eye for finding the back of the net with long-range strikes during his academy days. Lightning quick and a wonderful crosser of a ball, Giles has all of the tools to become a Premier League wing-back, and he's still only 23 years old. One thing that also unites a lot of Luton's signings, both this summer and throughout recent years, is their versatility. Giles can play anywhere down the left flank, but no one better encapsulates that than Nigerian-born Republic of Ireland international Chidozie Ogbene, who joined Luton this summer on a free transfer from Rotherham United. Ogbene still has lots of room to improve, otherwise he wouldn't be joining Luton this summer or have been at Rotherham for the last 4 years, but he is a manager's dream in more ways than one. Capable of playing on the left, right, in central midfield, attacking midfield as a second striker or even as a number 9, if it doesn't require donning a pair of gloves, odds are Ogbene can play there. Unpredictable and exciting on the ball, Ogbene has searing pace and bags of flair. Such an asset off the bench, he's capable of providing cover in several positions, but also providing an injection of raw speed against tired defences, and an element of spontaneous magic that, for all of their strengths, Luton had perhaps been lacking up to this point. Ogbene recently turned 26, making him one of Luton's older arrivals, but that doesn't tell the full story. 2 years ago, he was playing in League One. 4 years ago, he was playing in League 2, and last season was Ogbene's breakout campaign in the Championship. But now, he's been thrown into the strongest league in world football. It will be a big jump up in class and a big task, but a fantastic learning curve, and on a free transfer, and on a tiny salary by Premier League standards, it's another fantastic piece of business. Luton's most experienced summer arrival, and likely their most expensive in terms of wages, is 29-year-old Zimbabwe international Marvelous Nakamba. Luton's only signing with substantial Premier League experience, Nakamba made 58 top-flight appearances in 3 seasons at Aston Villa, who signed him for £11 million from Club Brugge in 2019. Nakamba spent the second half of last season on loan at Luton, immediately becoming an integral part of the club's promotion push, and signing him for a reported fee of just £2.5 million was an absolute no-brainer. Smart, industrious, and aggressive, Nakamba will sit at the base of Rob Edwards' midfield, shielding their back three, and I'd expect him to be even more important to Luton's fortunes in the Premier League than he was in the Championship. Keeping him fit and void of any long-term injury problems may well prove to be key to Luton's survival hopes. The same might just be true of Tahith Chong, a familiar face to Manchester United fans, having come through the Red Devils' youth ranks and made 16 first-team appearances at Old Trafford in total. Chong has spent the last 2 seasons starring for Birmingham City in the Championship, the first on loan, and the second following a £1.45 million move to St Andrews. Chong was absolutely electric when he first joined Birmingham on loan, but looked a little bit leggy and appeared to be struggling with injuries as last season went on. Still, his potential is clear for all to see, and like Ogbene, he's capable of playing almost anywhere. In fact, just last season alone, he pretty much did. If fully fit, I think that he is more than capable of becoming Luton's star man this season, and for £4 million, again, in this market, is just sensational business. Luton's next 2 additions, they hope, will be integral to them keeping the ball out of their own net this season. Thomas Kaminski, signed for £2.5 million plus add-ons from Blackburn Rovers, will become the club's new number 1, replacing Ethan Horvath, who was on loan at Luton last season. One of the outstanding goalkeepers in the Championship for the past 3 seasons, Kaminski won Blackburn's Player of the Year award in his debut campaign with the club, and has been called up several times to the Belgium national team, though he is yet to actually win a cap. Although Luton are a very tight-knit group, and team spirit has been integral to their success over the past decade, they haven't been sentimental. The easy decision this summer would have been to make Ethan Horvath's loan move from Nottingham Forest a permanent one, but Rob Edwards felt that there were better options out there than the American, who made 40 appearances for Luton last season. Equally, it would have been easy to hand 31-year-old centre-back and club captain Sonny Bradley, who was out of contract this summer, a new short-term deal following promotion. Bradley's game time was significantly reduced last season though, and the Premier League would be a huge step up in class for a man who Luton signed in League One, so there was an amicable separation at the end of last season, and Bradley joined Derby County in League One. His replacement, as Luton's new right-sided centre-back, was also playing League One football last season, but don't let that put you off him. Signed by Barnsley for £900,000 in 2019, uncapped Dane Mads Andersen had a tough start to life in South Yorkshire, but began to establish himself during the behind closed doors pandemic era. A towering 6'4" centre-back, Anderson had his best season at Oakwell last season though, named as Barnsley Player of the Season and making the League One Team of the Year, as the Tykes finished 4th in English football's 3rd tier. Still aged only 25, make no mistake, this season will be a steep learning curve for Anderson, and he will be learning on the job up against some of the best players in world football. But as with all of Luton's signings, they know exactly what he can do and how important he can be to them if they are to get relegated this season. Personally, I love that kind of recruitment by bottom half Premier League teams, and it ought not to be viewed merely as damage limitations. The likes of James Maddison, John Stones, Ollie Watkins, Jared Bowen, Said Benrahma, Eberechi Eze, Michael Elise, and Mikel Antonio, among many others, were all signed from Championship clubs and with little to no Premier League experience, but only went on to flourish in the top flight. They are low-risk, high-reward signings, especially when, as in the case of Luton, you keep transfer fees and wages to a minimum. In addition to Luton's 7 permanent arrivals, arguably their biggest coup of the transfer window has been the loan signing of Issa Kabore, or at least, I'm told that's how those inside of the club see it. Signed by Man City for around £4 million in 2020 as a 19-year-old, Kabore spent last season on loan at Marseille, where he made 4 appearances in the Champions League. Fast and adventurous, just like Giles on the opposite side, Kabore will make mistakes and has his defensive frailties, but it'll also be great fun to watch. It's a dream move for Man City, who will get to see how Kabore adapts to life in the Premier League, and whether he can be a future successor to Kyle Walker. And if the answer to that question is anything other than a firm no, he'll also have proven to be a fantastic addition for Luton. Now, I had a whole segment here about how I thought perhaps the one thing that Luton lacked, though the signing of Ogbene does go some way towards addressing it, is a real flair player who, even if only off the bench, can come on and produce something out of nothing and turn a game on its head. Someone like Angel Gomez, Sergio Gomez, or Amid Diallo, though I'm not sure how realistic any of those names are, and the last one might have a personal gripe with Luton after last season, but that profile of player. I had to cull that whole section though and add a new one, since literally as I was recording it, Luton announced the signing of Ross Barkley. Honestly, I love it when that happens, it's not annoying at all. Barkley is capable of being a match winner and producing something miraculous. We have seen it in the past, but we have also seen far too little of it in recent years. Barkley joined Chelsea in what proved to be an ill-fated move 5 years ago, after almost 8 months out injured, where he never really settled. Stints with Aston Villa and most recently Nice last season were no more impressive, but joining Luton is a sign that Barkley is prioritising proving his talents in the top flight, now aged 29, over grabbing the biggest payday on offer. And Luton wouldn't have signed him if they didn't feel that he was serious about doing just that, and that they could get the best out of him. This is a player, after all, who was capped 33 times by England at the age of 25, and if he hadn't suffered a steep fall from grace in recent years, Luton would have no chance of being able to sign him. Unlike a lot of promoted teams from the Championship in recent years, don't expect Luton and Rob Edwards to be wedded to a particular style of play or dogma. Luton play to their strengths, first and foremost, and do their best to minimise their weaknesses. There won't be many games this season in which they have more than 50% possession, but they will be compact, direct, and choose their moments. There aren't many Premier League teams who will play 2 6-foot-plus centre-forwards this season and routinely look to hit the ball long, but Luton will be one of them, and that will provide Premier League defences with challenges that they are not used to. Luton are also lethal from set pieces, and they'll have to be this season to give themselves a fighting chance. It's important to note, given that you could be forgiven for thinking otherwise based upon some of the coverage ahead of this season, that Luton didn't fluke promotion. They didn't win a raffle or competition to be entered into the Premier League. They were the 3rd best team in the Championship, 5 points clear of Michael Carrick's Middlesbrough, and few people would be talking about them in a similar vein had they won the playoffs instead. Luton's stadium revenue and budget make them the Premier League's ultimate underdogs. But the next Derby County, and perhaps I'll be made to look foolish for saying this, I suspect they are not. In fact, at this moment in time, I'd rate their chances of survival significantly higher than Sheffield United's, and their transfer business has been in an entirely different league, even if they would probably be my second favourites to go down. Ultimately, though, Luton had no right to win promotion with the size of the club's budget, and anything from this point on is a bonus. Unless something goes horribly wrong, which seems extremely unlikely given the club's caution and wily business up to this point, Premier League promotion has secured Luton Town's future for years, if not generations, providing most of the funds for a new £100 million stadium that they were already planning on building. Even if they get pumped 5-0 every week, which I don't think they will, some weeks sure, but not every week, you can't take that away from them. There are those who claim that Luton Town's fate has already been sealed and who have written them off before a ball has been kicked this season. In the 2008-09 season, though, Luton Town's fate was literally sealed before a ball had been kicked. They know what that looks and feels like. That isn't the case now. They have a mountain to climb, no doubt about it. But it's one that no one expects them to climb, they have no right, statistically, to even be entertaining the idea, and they have defied all of the odds just to make it to base camp. Premier League promotion was Luton's Everest, now they are just looking up to the stars. This video focused on Luton Town's underdog status, their preparations for this season and beyond, and what to expect of them in the Premier League, with only a brief mention of their extraordinary rise. That's partly because I didn't want to make it an hour long, but it's mostly because I have already made a video about that, entitled The Remarkable Rise of Luton Town, which is the only video, fun fact, that I've ever written in hospital after my mate cropped me in 7 aside. So, if this video has whet your appetite for some more Luton Town content, and you are wondering how they got here in the first place, feel free to go and give that a watch. I will leave a link to it in the end screen coming up next. I will also leave a note in the video description, I hope, on the HITC Sevens Fantasy Premier League Private League code, should any of you wish to join. Anyway, that is it for today's video, but thank you all very much as ever for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. I hope that was the case. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and of course, it goes without saying, make sure that you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for both this channel and my second channel, both of which should be on or about to appear on your screens now, along with that Luton Town video that I just mentioned and another video that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. You can also find me on Twitter or on Instagram via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.